There's a place, a school, an institution where a professor resides. One that for the past 30 years has traveled the world teaching others. A pioneer in America of the fighting science of Savate. One who codified the sports of this fighting style. One who has produced clubs, champions, and continues to develop. Listen to work.
Back on Monday's questions and answers here, and with me I have aide monitor Patrick Gavin, who's been with us for a very long time. We had, this past weekend we just had a great exam, which was a 31st annual passage de grade for Savate. Imagine that, 31 years of actually every year having an exam and never failing, no matter if it was 3 guys or 20 guys or 30 guys. We've had that exam, and you've been with many of them.
Absolutely.
And this year was special because we had 2 silver gloves going up there, and Jaime Garza, who's from Austin, and Mike Castles, who's from San Antonio. But the main question today, Patrick, is very simple. The question is that they ask is there any sports of Savate? Has there ever been any sports of Savate in the U.S.? And I think the answer is yes, for a very long time, since 94. I think actually 91 was the first one.
The question regarding competitive sports in Savate, absolutely, there have been. Various associations have put on competitions of various sizes and scope, particularly USA Savate, United States Amateur Savate, which sponsored contests of pré-combat, which is full power kicks and punches. The competitors wear headgear, mouthpiece, groin guard, shin guards, and regulation boxing gloves, similar to competitive amateur boxing. Actually, almost designed the same, 4 multi-layered of foam, 10 and 12 ounce depending on the weight. And of course, boxing or Savate shoes. Those competitions were pretty much pioneered by USA Savate. USA Savate did more of them than anybody else.
And was the only one that could actually do them legally and sanctioned by the state. There's been other competitions that they've had that were non-sanctioned.
Correct.
That were sanctioned in their own mind, but not by the state. So when you do that, it's a unsanctioned bout.
Right.
Nonetheless, you competed. You were a 3-time U.S. champion back in the early 2000s, and you've competed internationally. In fact, I coached you in one event in Belgium,
Belgian Open, yeah.
Which believe me, guys, when I took the team over to Belgium, it was, you can see, I wouldn't say racism, but you can see nationalism at its best. And Gavin here knocks him out with a gancho to the body.
A liver shot, as
I
Boss
remember
would
that.
say.
And it was a gancho to the body. He dropped, and he gets disqualified for overusage of hands in Savate. Imagine that. So that was funny. The other boxer that we took over there, Jorge Garza, he knocked the other guy up with an uppercut, and the guy fell on him. Okay, fell on him literally, and the first thing that happened was when he turned, he falls to the ground, out like a light. And what happens? He gets disqualified for wrestling in the ring, and that kind of, I contested that, but there's nothing you can do. I mean, folks, you have to realize one thing: when you compete, and if you're going to have a stable of fighters and you're going to compete, I don't care if you're going to compete in tiddlywinks. If there's going to be judges and officials, you better have folks in your club being officials and such, because guess what? If it's not a knockout, you're going to get, and it's just by points, you're going to lose the bout. That's the way it is, unfortunately. And it's just the way it is. But the question, competition, no. The last competition of USA Savate was the one that you won, was in 2005. Yeah, the U.S. National. 5, US 5. And that was over, it was held here, and we had teams from all over, from California. We had from Austin. We had Dallas, Chicago. We had Pinayer, that was from Tennessee, came down. So we had a range of states coming around, and we had quite a few that won, and from here, the majority, and it was a very well. But what happened was the wars were so much an influence that they just killed it. You know that.
I was had 3 deployments during the war, so they kind of took their toll on me. So injuries and everything such that I still have. But getting back to the competitions, in terms of having competitions, one of the biggest obstacles to competitions was the regulatory hurdle that had to be overcome. And when we're talking regulatory hurdles, we're talking mainly the cost of having a contest, the legal liability. This is a very litigious country, and it was very difficult in days gone by to find an insurance carrier that would cover a full contact event. It's like a boxing or a kickboxing. Most of the companies that covered martial arts wouldn't touch boxing, kickboxing with a 50-foot pole. That's a fact, and that only recently, relatively recently, in the last 5 to 7 years, has come around, and now they'll cover anything from MMA, cage fighting, Muay Thai, kickboxing, knees to the face, and all that. But if you're going to do it right, if you're going to do it safely, if you're going to do it legally, if you're going to have respect for the health and safety of the competitors that are young people who trust you implicitly, you have to overcome those financial and regulatory burdens. And to do that, you need kind of a tipping point of members and funds to make that happen. And that kept a lot of organizations that would normally have competitions out of the business because of the costs and the logistics of organizing even a small event. Okay, and that, like I said, has only changed recently. As far as cane fencing competitions, oh my God, the same thing. There was a day, you would try to tell an insurance company, oh yeah, we want to have a contest of, we're going to be hitting each other with sticks over the head and body. And
they'll say no, and they'll laugh.
They don't say no, they say, hell no, are you bleeping crazy, and slam down the phone on you. No, it's you. Even though there was fencing competitions, United States Amateur Fencing didn't consider this one of their sports. No way they'd cover you with their insurance umbrella. You had to get your own.
And that's where we went in, and we ended up finding that, and kind of changed because we didn't have competitors as well. And in Savate is what I call a rarity martial art in the United States.
It is, yeah, very much.
It's a rarity. You can find more silat now than you can Savate. And there's only 2 major outlets. It's ours here and the people that do Jeet Kune Do, and they don't, they never want to compete with us as per se.
It's not a competitive martial art.
So what happens is that we had some friends, some associates from Stockton, and we got kicked around the idea with all the Eskrima guys in the Stockton area, and we came to a organized, said, hey, our guys would compete, can we kind of come to a thing? So it changed, and we formed a new actual sport with similar rules to GAN, de combat, and similar rules to the different Eskrima associations, as well as Savate and everything. And it was compromised. It took about 4 years just to put the rules together. And a lot of people do not understand that 4 years just to put the rules together. We're in our 5th Texas championship last year with COVID, so we didn't have it. So we're scheduling one for this September, which we're going to have one this September, and hopefully we can have an American stick fighting championship in December. So it'll be open to everybody that's around, and it changed the group of competitors, because now it opened it up to everybody else. And so anybody that does stick, I don't care whether you do Japanese bow, or you do Chinese staff, or you do Gan de Combat from the Savate realm, or any of the Filipino
How they are, names that scream out.
exactly. You can compete. You just, you wear a helmet, wear lacrosse gloves, and you compete under a set of rules. And that committee became known as a Gentleman's Stick Fighting Coalition, which is under USA Savate. And it has done good. So little by little, I think we're going to start seeing more of that and let this pandemic go by.
And moreover, you're not, in the Gentlemen's Stick Fighting Coalition events, we're not using hard sticks. I don't know if that was a compromise with the insurance carrier, but at any rate, we use the padded sticks. The Action Flex by Century, or the soft sticks variety, which are basically hollow PVC plastic covered with plumber's foam padding and a Cordura sheath. So you can take, tremendous blows to the head even without a helmet and not risk traumatic brain injuries, which is that alone. Okay,
But
it takes a lot of the risk out of it.
Let me put it to you this way: the equipment is a lot more accessible now.
It is.
When we first started Savate here, and we started bringing it back here, both us here and the folks in California, boxing gloves were too expensive. You used to get Everlast back then were $120 a pair, not a set.
And they're terrible.
And then Ringside started coming out around 92, and you were still and you had to buy 4 at that time. It was $150. So it was, boxing gloves for Savate did not come into kind of a phase, especially with the kickboxing aerobics and all that Taibo stuff, that people were hitting the bags, that Century and everybody else started producing them. And so now you can get boxing gloves at a cheaper rate, which are fairly well made. And I'm not endorsing any single one of them. But back then, we used to come from Dallas. I used to go across to Mexico, go buy 8 pairs and go give it to my students at the price. It was not something that we're trying to oversell or not.
Like Clito Reyes, Casanova, Zeppel, the Mexican manufacturers.
Because those are great gloves.
They are. The leathers are fine, and the workmanship is excellent.
Then you go with
padding, not so much.
But then you go into shoes. Well, Savate shoes is a pain in the ass to get here in the United States anyway. You're going to be, if you're going to go right now, euro-wise, you're spending $250, $300 for a pair of shoes.
With the taxes and VAT that you have to pay. There's only 2 companies in the world to source these things. Rivat, number 1, and ISPA, number 2, a smaller manufacturer, better known for gymnastics and shoes and hiking boots. But they make about maybe 4 or 5 different models. Rivat makes about 20.
But what happens? It's very hard to get them here.
It is.
Savate uniforms, the Tanu was tremendous. I remember when we first started competing here, we had to send them out to a person that used to do ice skating, because they used to use the same Lycra over in Irving. Mm-hmm. And I used to get those people to come in there, and you were going to compete 3 months down the road, you better order a uniform now for you to have it then. Bingo. So even now, the Tanu of Savate for competition is very, very hard to get here in the States, let alone in France. So that's where a lot of people start. That's when it starts depleting the source for the sport. And a lot of people in the United States want microwavable arts. They want to have fast track, fast technique, I'm already champion microwavable stuff, you know. So what I'm saying is the competitions are there. The competitions we've had. The first competitions were made out of the Texas Association of Savate. Then it went into USA Savate. Then there've been some other guys claiming to have it, but you're just claiming to have, because then you tell them where was it. There's no pictures, no videos, no nothing. So you're like, okay. But nonetheless, there was one particular time back in the 80s, there was an exhibition bout that they had over in Chicago. And
back in '87, I remember that.
And then they had one in '63 by a couple of French that came down in Dallas. And it was Count Barussi brought down a team, because Count Barussi had a business in Dallas, and you remember that he brought down a team to do a demonstration bout within a boxing competition. But there's no pictures of that. It was just told by Count Barussi. And so, nonetheless, that's where it's all at. Folks, if you guys want to train Savate, if you guys want to compete in Savate, find yourself an instructor that's a legitimate in teaching, number one. Ask them how long is it going to take. If you come to me and you tell me I want to compete, I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you why. Because I have to teach you how to throw, a punch and a kick, how to defend from a punch and a kick, how to move from a punch and a kick, all that before I even allow you to go inside the ring to start getting anything else. So more likely, if you're going to be a fighter underneath me inside a competitive ring, more likely you're going to be doing a lot of boxing before we can go anywhere else, because I need for you to have ring experience before I allow you to go into something.
You know, ringmanship, ring generalship, just knowing the basics of pugilistic, competitive boxing. Now, USA Savate, as it stands, you can practice and train in any martial art and join USA Savate and go to USA Savate competitions, be they pre-combats, be they assault, light contact, be they the Gentlemen's Stick Fighting Coalition. You just have to abide by the rules.
Whether it's Savate Boxe Française, if you're going to compete in Savate Boxe Française, or if you're going to compete in the stick fighting, or even compete in capoeira, because now we have Savos Capoeiras inside. So now USA Savate is also doing tournaments for capoeira, and it's held tournaments for capoeira. So there is competition under USA Savate banner. The thing is, you just have to find your niche where you want to do it and take it from there. The stick fighting is a lot more common now because it's a lot more easier. You just have to understand the rules. And the ring's a little bit different because right now, remember, you fight with experience, you fight by weight, and guess what? We might have a lightweight in Laredo, and a middleweight in Dallas, and a heavyweight in Chicago, and super fly in Tennessee. You can't have a bout. Okay, you might have a girl that's a lightweight, and a guy that's a lightweight in Texas. You can't match them up. Right. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Even though some people do that and things happen, and that's the reason why some states do no longer allow Savate to be demonstrated as competition. But nonetheless, what were you going to say?
In pre-combat, the full contact version of it, that's definitely true. If you have so much as 5 pounds on somebody and they're throwing full power kicks and punches, it matters a great deal. Okay, somebody can dry themselves out and after weigh-in or before weigh-in, and then at the time of the fight come in 10, 15 pounds heavier. So it really, really matters in a full contact bout. In a light contact bout, it's supposed to be a bout without power, but still, realistically, somebody who's bigger, who has more mass, what is light contact for them and what is light contact for somebody who's maybe 125, 135 pounds are two different conversations. And as such, you have to respect that. That's another thing that makes it very hard, as Prof said, to have competitions, sanctioned competitions.
On another note, we're going to take this. It will grow. You know, like I said, the pandemic last year damaged Savate dramatically.
And we're all over the world.
So we're going to start moving up and start seeing those competitions develop. I would look for latter part of next year to start seeing more competitions, maybe even of Savate book française, whether it's ASSO or whether it's Precombat. And that's it. So folks, if you're interested in Savate, Savate's for everybody. And I'm going to say this. Savate's for men, women, and children. But I tell you what Savate is not for, who it will never be taught for. And those that don't ever want to learn Savate will never learn Savate. So with that being said, if you're looking for a school, if you want to train, look up USA Savate or give me a call directly, 956-401-4868. That's my direct cell number for those of you guys out there. Even for you guys, even if you haters out there, if you want to call me, we'll discuss something, we can discuss it one way or another.
Be civil, please.
You know, the problem that we have is that we need to move forward. We have to stop the fear. We have to train well athletes, and because they entrust us, and we cannot be like you guys call shice them into something else. You know, be careful when they tell you I'm going to go into a kickboxing fight, and you end up going into a kickboxing fight, and it's an unsanctioned fight, because there's plenty of those, and your coach is getting a little bit money on the side because they're getting paid because they're betting on the fighters anyway. You know, that happens, and those are unsanctioned bouts, unsanctioned. Find out if there's an association, be a member of the association, contact the association. There's plenty of ways to find out if it's legal, because I've seen a lot of people get damaged. And also, bear this in mind, USA Savate is an amateur association for amateur athletes. If you've competed for money, you have become a professional athlete. Nor USA Boxing is going to accept you for that. So understand that. And a lot of people get sidewinded into something because they did not know.
Right.
And all of a sudden, they can no longer compete where they should have been competing in the first place. Anything else?
Yeah, as far as I know out there, as far as kickboxing associations that are legit, I think there's only WACO, which is the World Association of Kickboxing Organizations. It's the largest one in the world. There's, I think, I don't know if they're still around, but there might be International Kickboxing Federation Amateur Association, and I think there's one Amateur Thai Boxing Association. It might be US Thai Boxing Association, but I could be wrong on that. You'd have to Google it, look it up. Those are the only ones that comply with the law as I've seen it as practiced in my state, in Illinois, because Illinois really stepped up in the last several years to regulate things like mixed martial art competition, which were not regulated before, and that due to some injuries and
Sure.
severe trauma, things had to change and things had to evolve.
Absolutely. And it happens, like I said. You know, it happens.
Right.
Folks,
Very much.
be safe, stay safe, train, find a trainer that is good. And I'm not trying to say that is good at teaching you just to kick in the air or kick something. To have somebody that is meticulously, technically always correcting you. If you can't find one of those, tell them thank you, walk out, go look for somewhere else. Because if they're not trying to take care of you, they're just kick and letting you go off on your own whim, they're doing you more damage than good. On another note, if you like it, subscribe. If you want to always subscribe, share it. We will be having some more fights. Will be coming in the channel. The channel is growing left and right. And keep sending those questions, because those questions is good for us to answer them, because it puts us back on check. And like I said, in USA Savate, there's a lot of checks and balances, and there's a lot of programs in USA Savate. More so, there's even right now there's even youth programs that we're trying to develop. I know we have some here in Webb County that it's for the less fortunate, but the only outcome is that they have to have good grades. And they had a program for that that they started for, especially for the Suavos Capoeira, was an experimental program that we did last year. And out of 12 kids, we ended up with 8 staying because 2 of them moved out of town and 1 of them did not have the grades to continue. And guess what? The remainder of actually 10 out of the 12 were honor roll students, but right now actively in the program 8, because the 2 of them left, which is pretty damn good, you know, to get that. So, and here what happens is you get a kid that is a D student, all of a sudden starts doing B's and A's, and you start seeing the difference. So we're going to use that pilot program and kind of bounce it into USA Savant, into the way that we can help other in USA Savant and other clubs bring in the less fortunate youth to train, but that's their plan. Until next time, much peace.
Train at the best kept secret of Laredo, Buitron Academy, 956-401-4868, Savate.biz.